In this video, I'll be installing a set of KC Hilites Cyclone V2 rock lights under a CJ7 as well as under a TJ. For my comments, thoughts on the Holley RetroBright lights, please have a look at the comments below for a link to that video. So I pulled everything out of the box. So far, I'm really happy with my decision of not going with the cheap $100 or so kit that I found online. Simple instructions, a good little wiring schematic, a few good little details to read, so just make sure you go through that before you start. They do include 3 different lengths of wiring, so I'll do the conversion later, but 2.5 meters, 3.5 meters, and 5 meters, so hopefully, depending on where you put the fuse block, you can really get pretty far. It's pretty cool that they have 6 different legs. Each of them have a fuse. I'll take the cover off and double check the rating per leg. So if you end up doing something crazy off-road and short out one wire, you're only going to lose whatever's connected to that one fuse instead of the whole thing. I did pull out earlier, it is a 10 amp fuse for the whole circuit, so definitely gives you an idea of how much draw that they're expecting people to take out of this block by adding a few more fixture lights in the future. I definitely like the look and feel of these. In case you want to get your own magnets or something, this diameter here is about 1 inch in diameter, measure 25 millimeters, so it gives you a little bit of an idea. In their instructions, they explain what to do with the different color wires. They use the red for power from the switch. Yellow is power to the switch from the battery or whatever your other source you have. And there's a ground wire in here as well for your switch to be able to operate and turn on and off the status light. From there, there's a negative battery post. That's where all the negatives from all these leads are going to end up stacked one on top of the other there. For these brackets, 2 other different ones. A lot of different hardware, including some rubber grommets in case you want to install them against something and not have them vibrate. You can do that, and that'll keep it from making any types of weird noises. A few options for extra terminals and some good old-fashioned screws to mount the terminal block on the vehicle. So, and a lot of zip ties and a little bit of wire loom. So good first impression. Now what I'll do is I'll do a mock-up even before I start recording it as to where I think these 3 lights should go on one side. I'll probably start by wiring up this terminal block so at least I have an easy way of controlling it. The way I'm going to do it in each vehicle is going to be a little different just because the CJ already has control switch in the cab. The TJ does not. So when the previous owner rewired this Jeep, they did a really good planning and they provided a few extra pins in this harness to go from the cab into the engine bay. So if I hold this test light here, actually, if I put my finger on the switch first and then go on the test bin, I already have a spot where it's fused in the cab and there's an output circuit here. So I just have to add a pin to the harness at that location, and that part is already done. With 1 light installed under each bumper and another 2 under each rock rail, that gave me the best overall light distribution and limited the number of shadows on each side of the tires. So now I'm done with the wiring and the install. So I've got the fuse block and then the grounding bus right below it. And what I ended up doing is the included tubes, I installed them at that end. It seemed like the end of the cable that needed the most protection. Then I routed the wiring down existing harnesses. All the spare that came down on this side is attached there. 1 wire comes down along the fender to the front mounted light. So I'll turn them on after. The 2 sides, I did roughly the exact same thing. So about a foot from the tire, there's a light here. Wiring routed as much as I can in spots where it has been caught in the past. So I'm expecting the wires to survive. Same idea in the back. There's another light there. So it helps give a really nice balanced light across the vehicle. Then when I go to the back, again, I had to do a lot of routing to get the wiring above and away from the muffler. And what I did here is I got a little creative. I actually drilled and tapped a hole, mounted a bolt through the brackets installed behind the hitch. So that light is definitely going to be nicely protected from any type of damage. Then the wiring on this side comes up, down next to the battery. There's a few spots where there's zip ties. Then under the battery, there's a decent sized bracket, so that's where all the spare wiring is attached on this side. Same idea with the light there, and the sixth light is down there. So I'm pretty darn happy with the light spread. There's definitely some good distance that's being lit up by these lights the way they're installed. It'll definitely be fun to see what this looks like out on the trail. This definitely gives me a good feeling of what it's going to look like for anyone who has to spot me if I get stuck. A really good lighting underneath the whole vehicle. Very few shadows. The amount of little gray or black spots in front of the tires is very minimal, so it's definitely going to be easy to spot and see what's going on. If I had to guess, I'd probably say that there's a good 4+ feet that is visible all the way around the vehicle. It's definitely a lot brighter underneath the vehicle, just to be expected. So it's definitely going to be helpful at picking lines, seeing what may be caught underneath the vehicle, and making readjustments. So one of the important things that you'll want to do as you're installing zip ties is to cut them at 90 degrees. So this one here, it's cut something like 45 degrees, which was probably very easy and quick to do. But the problem is that ends up being a really sharp corner, which you end up hurting yourself every single time you rub up against it. So it's really important to have the right type of side cutters. So if you use normal ones, sometimes you can't get super close. That actually wasn't too bad. But I really like using some that are flush. That way you can really be guaranteed that you're up and close and have a super clean cut. You don't have to worry about rubbing yourself on it. You can definitely leave it a little bit longer if you want to. But the important part, again, is to cut it at 90 degrees to the actual zip tie so that when you touch it in the future, there's no sharp edges. So this bucket here gives us a pretty good example of just how many zip ties were used. It's really important to do good wire management. Figured it'd be also fun to show what's left from the original kit. So I didn't use the terminals yet. I may shorten the wire harnesses after I'm happy with the light output after some trail run. One of the 6 brackets. I kept all the original zip ties because these are better than the ones that I had. So I'll be able to use these in the future for something else. I use different fasteners just because I want to be consistent with everything else in the vehicle. The switch, and a little bit of a harness. So overall, use pretty much everything that came in the kit. So I spent a little bit of time figuring out where I want to put the fuse block in the TJ. And what I noticed is I'm not sure if it's because it's an AC unit that was pulled out, but there's a few studs down here below the lines near the battery that I can definitely put something in. So what did I do? I used a scrap piece of cardboard just to figure out the location of those 2 studs. Looked around, found a piece of sheet metal that was roughly the right size. So this one's actually in this orientation 5 inches tall, 4 inches wide. Lined up the parts, the ground, and the fuse block, and boom, I got something here. And then what I did is I ended up adding a little bit of a bend to it. The reason for that is I'm going to end up putting a few spacers. You could also use some slightly bigger nuts, slide them onto those 2 studs so that the bolts on the back aren't going to be pushed against the firewall. And then I can just secure them in place with 2 nuts, 1 on each side. After that, start routing some wiring.
So I ended up locating the 6 lights pretty much at the exact same spot as on the CJ. I was really happy with the output on one vehicle, and now it's great on the other as well. So really happy with the output and how much easier it is to see at night. If you're looking for some good quality lights, we definitely recommend these, and we're looking forward to seeing how well they last the test of time. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.